but for something else, if we're being honest, and Poshmark helped me pay for my outfits, and sometimes.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Tim Mix. I'm Marketing and Communications Manager at ORS. With us, we have Sharon Smith-Terry, who is the Executive Director at of ORS. And we are very happy to have Kurt Hankenson, ORS President, who is launching today the great Conversations with Kurt. And we thank you for being with us and taking part. And we hope you have some good questions. If you have anything that you'd like to ask Kurt, go ahead and either post those in chat or raise your hand as we move along here, and we will get to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Well, we have a relatively small group here for the evening session of Conversations with Kurt. This morning was a little bit better attendance. So probably with actually just a few of us on here, we can have a nice free-flowing conversation, I would say. What I started with this morning was giving everybody a little bit of an overview of how I came to become involved with ORS, and what my pathway was to breaking into an organization that was at first, I think, a little bit challenging for me. And I think using myself as an example of how maybe younger members, newer members, or established members who want to become more involved can become more involved. And so I first went to my first ORS in 1999, and I had come from a laboratory that was not I was a PhD student and was coming from a laboratory that was not an orthopedic oriented lab, and really didn't have any colleagues there or my PI was not there. So it was just myself. And so I found it to be a real challenging environment at the beginning. Not that people weren't nice, not that it wasn't a welcoming group, but just that not having any connection. And so it took time, sort of to build involvement. And I started by reviewing abstracts submitted for the annual meeting, and that was one of the first things I did as an ORS member. Became involved with, maybe at some point then was asked to, once you're reviewing abstracts, you're often asked to maybe to moderate a session. And so I became a session moderator at some point a few years after that. At that same time, right, I really started to try to build a network more of individuals at the ORS of people that I could get to know better. And one of my approaches was to reach out to people directly before going to the meeting and spending time trying to pre-arrange meetings to get to know people. And this was in a day before there was a lot of active things to try to get newer and members involved. So I think we have evolved as an organization a lot over the last 25 years. And, back then there was less that really sort of actively engaged new members. And now I think we do a much better job. But so I sort of took that on myself, sort of self-advocated. I would set up meetings with people who had similar research interests and that kind of thing. I had a few people who were really very supportive of me, who I didn't know very well. Linda Sandell, who was had been a president of ORS and now is the current JOR editor. Linda and I shared an interest in extracellular matrix biochemistry, and Linda was a big supporter. So through that, I started to meet people, and then, at some point applied to be on my first committee. So I had a committee involvement, and the joining a committee is a great way to be involved. So the volunteer appointment committee will send out announcements for volunteers for the various committees and in the fall. And, that's a great way to be involved, is by submitting your name for that. And then at some point, we thought, well, I'll throw my ring in, to compete for an elected position. And, I was going back through actually today after the earlier morning conversation, looking at sort of what I did. And I actually tried to run and be a member at large twice and was not even put on the ballot. And then at some point ran for the membership chair, and the membership chair at that time was an elected position, and I was elected to be the membership chair. And so then that sort of broke me into having a board level position, which was a great way to sort of learn more about the organization. Kind of following that service, one of the things that I had an opportunity to do that was really great was to help to found one of the sections. So the sections, are less than a decade old now at ORS, but have really kind of changed the organization in really profound ways. And so I was the founder of the preclinical models section, and that was something that happened, quite grassroots. So a few other people and I myself got together and we founded that organization. And I was the first chair of that organization. And so I think the sections are a really great way for people to be able to become involved more in the organization. The sections all have the same sort of leadership structure as the whole ORS, with chairs and committees that are involved, and that's a great way to be involved. And then at that point, from that point, I ran for president. One point, I think it was 2 presidential cycles ago, was on the ballot but was not elected, and then was asked to do it again 3 years ago and ran and was elected. And so that's kind of how I've gotten to here. Another way I think to be involved is our communities. So we have these organizations, these groups within ORS that are not sections per se, but they're we call our communities, and the Women's Leadership Forum is an example of one of our communities. The Asian Leadership Forum is one of the newer communities that was formed last year. And so becoming involved in those groups is also a great way to be involved. So I would encourage people that when the call for new members comes out, for new members to be on committees, to get involved, and when other calls come out to please respond and submit your names. Now, one thing I think I've heard over time from people is that I've heard this more than once. I actually heard it today from a colleague who was telling me that he has a colleague that has applied for to be selected for committee service multiple times and has never been chosen. And I think one of the things that we maybe haven't done the best of in the past is like tracking people's interest in serving on committees. And so one of the things we'll be doing better now as an organization is tracking people who express an interest and making sure that we get people involved who express an interest in getting involved. And because we want to make sure we feel that everybody who wants to be involved has some pathway to do that. And there are 3,000 members essentially in the organization, but only so many positions. But we also need to make sure that we're giving everybody an opportunity to serve the organization in the ways that they would like. So that's a little bit about my journey, a little bit about ways that other people can get involved. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions, or we can have more of a conversation about all that too, given that we're a relatively small group tonight. So happy to field any questions or tell you more. So just you can either put it in the chat or raise your hand, and Tim will select you and call on you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kurt. What we'll do here is I'll ask everyone to, or I'll allow everyone to unmute themselves, and they can come on as they have questions. And Rick Lieber is first up, and he has his hand up. So go ahead, Rick.
Thank you. Hey, hi, Kurt. It's good to see you. Hey, I'm a little concerned. Well, yeah, thank you. I'm a little concerned at the ORS, having been a longtime member, that we're just not seeming to attract many orthopedic surgeons anymore. I'm sure you understand the issues. What do you think is going on, and what do you think we should do?
Hey, Rick, that's an awesome question. I really do appreciate it. I mean, you've been a longtime member, obviously, and been involved in leadership as well. It is a perplexing problem. And, so one of the things that we're doing is we started a task force that Roger Cornwall is going to be running to try to sort of understand things that we could do to attract more clinicians to the organization. One of the efforts that we're trying to make is building the guest clinical society that's been going on for a few years now, with the hope that that guest clinical society will help us program more clinically oriented programming particularly on the weekends. I think we are kind of recognizing that the surgeons have a limited availability of time. And so if we can try to focus some of the clinical content over the weekend, that might be, one of the things to help. I mean, I think we really, Rick, a little bit of my thought on this is that at the departmental level, in people who are in leadership positions like myself, I'm an associate chair for research, right? Chairs and associate chairs for research need to be doing a better job of trying to get the residents involved, including trying to get the residents time to be able to come and be more engaged in the community. Some of the things I think that we do well, we have the grant writing workshop that's on the Friday before the meeting starts, and we get generally some good participation of clinicians in that, residents in that. We have the clinical sciences development program that's hosted by the ORS in the fall. I think that's a good way to get involved, and we need to capture, I think, more of those individuals. But I think ultimately it's going to be about really trying to understand what the surgeons need and what they want the ORS to be. I mean, I wasn't part of the decision-making process that resulted in our splitting from the academy, but you've been around, you know that there were some reasons why we needed to do that from a fiscal organizational management perspective. But that's made it a little bit harder, undoubtedly, right, to not be as associated with the academy. And given that constraint, I have to say, I think we probably, if we could have gone back in time, probably from the beginning, needed to be thinking about, okay, we're losing this direct engagement by not coupling with the academy. How are we going to compensate for that? And we can't re-legislate the past, but I think we sort of should have been more thoughtful at the beginning, and I think now we're going to have to make up for that, because I think it is really important part of the organization, right? It is what makes us very unique, I think, is our mix of people of across disciplines, right? From the clinicians to the biologists to the engineers. So we have to keep that mix. From as far as I'm concerned, the mix is essential to who we are as our identity, and I want to do everything we can. So I know that was maybe a lot of hand waving. I wasn't trying to be hand wavy. I think the demonstrative things that we're doing are this clinician engagement task force that Roger's working on, a clinical, the clinical studies section that was started, I think 2 years ago. Hopefully that's part of it. Thinking about the guest clinical societies. Hopefully all these mechanisms together will work to build more clinician engagement. I'd love to hear ideas from other people though too. Rick, do you have any thoughts of your own?
Yes, actually, I was on the board when that all happened, and I was very disappointed that I couldn't impact it more. I hate to say it, and I know it's a big logistical problem for us, but the problem is, I think that we don't co-localize with them, and I know it gives us a huge disadvantage as a scientific society to not be with them. But I mean, unfortunately, their time is tighter than most basic scientists in their space. So I feel like we should flex and be with them. I know that's not necessarily a popular view, but we can certainly chat about it.
Yeah, no, Rick, listen, I think that I don't think it's something that should be off the table, right? I mean, that might not be a popular opinion amongst some past leadership, right? But I think if you were to poll the membership, I think probably most of members would say, sure, let's see what we can do, right, to build this more with the academy. So, I agree. I don't know. All I can say is I think it's an important issue. I agree with you, and we need to continue to do more. And the co-localization was obviously a huge advantage when that happened.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Audrey, Jennifer, Russell.
Can you hear me, Kurt?
I can.
Nice. Thank you for doing this, Kurt.
Well, thank you for coming and doing it. I know you're on your European time after your long junket.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I'm still awake, but
Right, well, that's probably because you were up until 3 in the morning when you were there.
so just to follow on from your comments about people approaching you, they can't get onto a ballot, they don't get a response when they want to be on a committee. I've had a few people approach me about the same thing. And I mean, my response is, and I don't know if this is the correct response, but just, once you've identified a committee or council you're interested in, then maybe see who's on that council or committee and just reach out directly to one or two people to find out what the mechanism is. How did they get there? But I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on, will there be a more transparent process for people to try to make that first move to get onto a committee council for the first time?
Yeah, I think we need to be more, thoughtful about the guidance we're giving to people about how they do it, right? And as you just said, reaching out to the chair of the committee, talking to the chair about their interest, understanding what the committee's needs are. I mean, all these things I think are directions that we could give, right? Sort of more mentorship and guidance on how to get involved. And so those best practices would be good. So this was, it was an enlightening experience for me this year going through it. I was leading the volunteer appointment committee, and my role, was first vice president. And it was interesting because there's a lot of people who fill out the interest in being involved, and everybody has an opportunity to sort of describe why they want to be involved. And some provide a lot of in-depth detail, and other people provide less detail. And obviously the people who provide more detail, you kind of understand more why they want to do it. And so I think we need to coach people a little bit more on what we're looking for. And I do think the other thing that we really do need to track, right? We really do need to track people who have submitted their names to be involved, and haven't gotten an opportunity. And we need to be, I think, more thoughtful about, making sure we're giving people an opportunity that have tried to get involved. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. My biggest concern with the organization is that that I don't want an organization, and this is not ORS, this is like other organizations we're parts of, right, to be too clubby. I want everybody to feel like they can have equal access to it. And I want these processes to be transparent. So the more that we can just sort of share best practices and clarity on how to get involved, I think the better off we'll be. Do you have any other thoughts on it from your perspective, or others on the call? I mean, everybody on this call, I think, has had some involvement over time. So I'd be interested in hearing everybody else's opinion.
I mean, maybe there could be a session at the next annual meeting, some sort of a
love that idea.
Right, you talked about coaching people on how to really put themselves out there about how much they want to be involved. So maybe this could be an opportunity. And to Rick's point, also to involve, orthopedic surgeons, residents, or maybe we could have a session on it. I don't know, just.
Yeah, that's great. Or Audrey, Audrey, perhaps the leading up to the volunteer appointment committee, we could even do sort of a Zoominar, for people to give them, or even, just sort of short directions, right? I mean, I think there's ways that we can do this to help people, guide them. I mean, it's understandable. There's people who don't have the mentorship, right? Because as I've described for myself, they're not coming from the big labs, and they don't know exactly what they're necessarily supposed to do. So we need to help and provide better mentorship. I mean, I do think you know this too. We've both been coming to the meeting for a long time. We do a lot better job of taking care of newer members, I think, than we did before. But I still think there's a lot more that we can do.
Agree.
We also
Sharon?
don't have to wait till the annual meeting. We could put some on-demand content together too, and make it available for members throughout the year, particularly when we do the call for volunteers. Just to give members something to think about and plan for, over time. So that's certainly an option as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the call for volunteers, that would be a really nice thing to do. short
Mhm.
sort of primer on here's how, sort of best practices for indicating your involvement. But,
Definitely.
the tracking the members who submit an interest in being on a committee, that's another thing I think we really needed to be doing, more thoroughly. And, that sort of record keeping, I don't think we've done very well. Anything, Jennifer, Russell? Rick?
I was just curious to be here. I'm a PhD student, and was just curious about kind of opportunities for students at the ORS. I have attended ORS meetings. I've never presented because I'm currently not working specifically on a project that is directly related to orthopedics, kind of like yourself. And so just kind of, trying to get, some idea of if there might be opportunities for students with the organization.
Yeah, for sure. And where are you?
So I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
At Oregon Health and Science University.
Okay, great. Right, we know people there. Well.
Yeah, I was kind of working with Ronan Schweitzer's lab. I don't know if you know him, but
Yeah, we know Ronan well, and Brian Johnstone, as you might know, is a past president of ORS.
yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the organization. And so you have not yet had an opportunity to attend a meeting?
So I've been to 2 tendon section meetings.
Oh, good. Okay, because you hosted one at in Portland, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah. I think it was actually back in 2018. It was the first year I started my PhD.
Oh,
program.
5 years ago,
Yeah.
right? I'm losing track of time, right? So,
Well,
and then you went to
this.
then you went to this more recent one that was this past spring.
I went to, was it last year? I'm trying to remember now. I think it was last year. Yeah.
Well, and so, the sections, right, like that's all very new in the ORS, right, within the last decade. And I mean, I think that the getting involved with the sections is sort of a really great way to become involved. I mean, that's like a great way. I mean, I think that the tendon section meetings have had student and things that are student specific, if I'm remembering correctly. So the sections are a way to get involved, and then beyond that, so if we go back into the olden days when Audrey and Russell and myself were first started in the ORS, there really was not a lot that was very specifically focused for PhD students or trainees, and now there's a lot more that is very specific that way, including like each committee has some trainee member involvement on it, right? So every committee has at least one trainee member. There's some committees that have many trainee members, like the social media committee, in sort of communications, things like that. There you'll find the trainees a lot very engaged. If you come to the meeting, one of the things that we do at the beginning of the meeting on the Friday night before the meeting starts is there's the start of the first night of the meeting is a meet and greet where new members can meet kind of everybody in leadership and meet other new members, and that's sort of a fun event to get to know people. And then there will be a number of other sort of events for trainee members as well over time. So I think there's a lot of things. Other things that I think are good for trainees for the meeting are awards. There's travel awards through sections. There's the new investigator research awards, the NIRO awards. I guess you have to be post PhD for that. But there's lots of things that we do to try to keep the students, PhD students, and postdocs really engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Are you thinking you might come to Long Beach?
I don't have the funding right now. My situation's kind of changed a bit.
Okay.
But but yeah, no, I'm interested, kind of knowing that like trainees can serve on certain committees, is kind of looking for like kind of more leadership opportunities and that sort of thing. So, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah,
sort
no,
of
I think, and I'm interested to hear Audrey and Russell's opinion about this too. I think we've done a really good job in the ORS of engaging trainee members. And I'm also a very active member of the American Society for Bone and Mineral Research as an example. And ASPMR is a great organization too, but I think the ORS has been way ahead of the ASPMR in its engagement of new investigator trainee members. And so we have a board position, that's specifically for trainee members. Again, as I said, each committee, has that. And then, there's many other opportunities too.
Okay.
Russell,
Yeah.
Audrey, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Nothing to add. I mean, yes, the resources and the opportunities compared to when we were first starting, I think are really, really significant. So it's just getting the word out to trainees on what's available and how, what the process is to get involved. I think that maybe is something we need to keep working on. There is so much out there, but not everyone knows how to navigate. That's all.
I think that's right. It's a lot about the navigating, right? Particularly for people who are coming from labs who are maybe, not as engaged with, sort of the ORS community. And, so making sure a lot more of that is transparent. I mean, I think another thing that, should be, I think, quite relevant as well, right, is the, ORS's work we've done on, diversity and equity in the organization and inclusion. And, I think that's another place where we are trying really hard to become, an organization that is more reflective of our diverse society. And it wasn't necessarily that 25 years ago. We've made some great strides, particularly with with female members, but we have, we have a lot of steps to take to be becoming a more equitable organization too. But I think there's a very strong commitment to doing that in the organization as well.
I think that's one of the strengths. We have WLF, and now EDGO is starting this Asian forum as well. I mean, it was through WLF really that I became a member of the membership committee. Mary Goldring recommended me to, pursue that. I hadn't thought about it. So that's the really strong point of the society, is that we have these people who are willing to raise others up. And I think that should, that's the role that we have now in a more senior position, is to reach out to trainees and really encourage them for positions.
Yeah, for sure, Audrey. And I should just say, so that everybody knows that, I mean, at least you, Jennifer, that Audrey is the treasurer of the board. So she's in the leadership with me. So she's quite an active member as well. And so anything else? Russell, do you have anything to add? Anything to say?
Sorry, I'm recovering from COVID, so my throat's all gone.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just on.
I'm sorry to hear you're with COVID right now.
Yeah.
If you have anything to type it in.
I will. I just learned how to do that. Okay.
Oh, I see. You just typed it. Okay. Yeah.
Kurt, I just wanted to encourage Stephanie to apply for travel grants, because that's a way to get you to the annual meeting. We also have diversity grants that are also available too. So that's certainly something I'm happy to follow up with you on, to get you to Long Beach, because that's a great way to network with senior leaders and other colleagues to build some relationship and get encouragement as you get more involved with ORS.
Right. So thanks, Sharon. Thanks for pointing that out. Right. We have travel grants that, are offered by the ORS. So, maybe a mechanism, Jennifer, for you to be able to get to the meeting if you're interested. One of the travel grants that we had this year was very focused on community building. So we've for a number of years done this outreach event that, sort of was on hold during the pandemic, where we engage communities wherever we are. And so this year, when we were in Texas, we were at the University of Texas Southwestern and had over 100 high school students come and have this basically day of engagement on orthopedic research. And so that was run by the outreach committee of the ORS, and they got to do various activities and sort of learning about orthopedics and that kind of thing. So and one of the things we did is like offered travel grants for people to come in and help with that event, and then be able, obviously to stay for the meeting. So there's things like that. And so look out for that. And as Sharon said, that, she can share more of that information with you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else from anybody else? Tim, I know, has some things questions for me, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about some of the things generally that are in store for ORS in the coming year?
Well, right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for asking. We're working on a number of different things. We're working on I know that this is a little wonky, but we're working on improving some of our processes internally. So working on improving our bylaws, working on improving our policies and procedures, so that they're more transparent and more clear and more directive for what, both what the board is supposed to be able to do or to do and to running the organization. That's I think really important, because it's important for the members to have faith and belief in the work that the leadership is doing. So that's one thing we're doing. Something more exciting that we're working on that Audrey knows about is the ORS was given a fairly sizable monetary gift, and we're working on using that money to really make some transformative changes to the ORS and really take us into the next few decades as a more impactful organization. So we've had a lot of impact, obviously, on our individual careers and the field, but we are thinking a lot about how we maybe reach the public in a broader way. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do with this transformative gift and this transformative work that we're doing. And so that's a thing that we're working on. What else is going on that's new? We will have a new editor-in-chief of the Journal of Orthopaedic Research. So that's really important. The journal is one of the primary ways in which we communicate. So both the JOR and JOR Spine are the two journals that we run as an organization. And the Journal of Orthopaedic Research has had the same editor-in-chief, Linda Sandell, for a number of years, and Linda will be stepping down, and we'll be hiring a new editor-in-chief. We're preparing for the annual meeting, right? So that's a big step, a big part of what we start to do. As soon as the old meeting is over, the planning for the next meeting starts right away. So the staff is very engaged in the planning for Long Beach. Long Beach comes earlier than usual. Am I right, Sharon? So what are we at? Are we at 10 months?
Yeah, we are at 10 months now. February 2nd through the 6th.
Right,
So
February 2nd.
it's earlier.
6th, planning for the Long Beach meeting. And the ORS has been to Long Beach once before. We're looking forward to that. It'll be nice to be on the coast, the California coast.
So Kurt, I know we'll talk about this later, but with regards to these transformative ideas that we're all thinking about and working on, I mean, will this still be something that will be put forward to the entire membership community? In addition
Yeah,
to
no,
board
no,
level?
Audrey, for sure. I mean, we have our, well, right, I mean, I should have mentioned that, we have a whole and a whole membership meeting, right, an entire membership meeting that will take place next month on April 17th, the ORS business meeting. And so my hope is that we'll at least be able to present some of the preliminary plans, Audrey, at that meeting.
Mhm.
I guess we'll have to see how far along we are in the planning at that point to see how much we can, how much information to give out at that point. I mean, I'm all for sharing, everything we're working on, but if it's still nascent, we don't want to be too premature.
But will it go out to a formal vote from the members as to what we want to do with this money, or will this be decided at the board level?
Yeah, I think that, well, that's a good question. Thanks for putting me on the spot. I appreciate that.
Well, something to be discussed at the next board meeting, I suppose.
No, I think that is something to be discussed. I appreciate that input. I mean, I'm not, I guess that's pretty granular.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why we have an elected board, right, is to make some of those decisions and to be guided. I think we hope that we're representing the members' best interests, right? I mean, I guess I'm inclined to think probably not, just because that might be a little bit more than we want. But my guess is if we did it, everybody would be supportive, but I don't know. I appreciate what you're asking.
Perhaps a survey, and then we can see what the membership population are thinking, and that can be taken into account by the board at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think one of the maybe the concerns I would have with it is, we spent a lot of time talking about what transformation
Right.
is like, right? And so, can we convey that to the membership in the most effective way?
Mhm.
And why I think that's important is, if you remember when we first started talking about the transformative gift, there were people, I think, who thought that taking the money and having, grants, a granting mechanism, right, would be transformative.
Mhm.
And I think we decided yes, that might be helpful for some individuals and their research programs, but does that really transform the organization?
Right.
And so I think I worry a little bit that to put it up for a vote, we would have to spend time, which maybe that's fine. Maybe we'd spend that time and talk to people about what transformation means.
Mhm.
I don't know. I've not thought about it until you just asked. I'd assumed that the work we were doing, would be ratified by the board and not put up for a member vote. But
And me too.
that's
And
something
me
we can
too.
discuss.
But this is us just talking in this
Yeah,
platform,
yeah.
this opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I really do. Something for us to discuss. I'm always open for discussion, and it's rare that my opinion is the right one. Was that chuckle because that's correct?
No, not at all.
Right. I'm not very dogmatic.
Hey, Kurt,
Um,
I just wrote something.
Oh, okay. Russell wrote, could the board come up with 3 or 4 transformative ideas and then membership vote as such? Right. So Russell, what we're working on is like 3 distinct transformative ideas. Focused on sort of 3 pillars. One focused on research, one sort of focused on engagement, which is about more how do we communicate with not only the members, but with society as a whole in a more effective way. And that's sort of very focused on what we're referring to, sort of a platform of an electronic-based platform, right? So not a website, but more, something that could promote member engagement, community engagement, funder engagement, that kind of thing. And then the third pillar sort of being focused on increasing diversity and equity in the organization. So those are sort of the three pillars we're working on, and each pillar is developing different ideas. We've gone through, and maybe this is something I need to make sure that I convey, Sharon, at the business meeting, right, is sort of what the work has been, what we've done and how we've gotten to where we are, right, to make sure that, people understand that there has been this, quite a lengthy process to kind of get us to where we are. So, right. So Russell, we've had a number of, quite a number of sort of interactive processes amongst the board to sort of land us on our sort of finalized ideas that we're developing.
And I agree at the business meeting, yes, certainly tell the membership about the breakout sessions and the facilitator we had. I mean, there's been a lot of effort put in, so I think you should certainly strengthen that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really helpful to think about, right? Rather than just, say, here's our 3 things without understanding what the lengthy process was, right?
Right.
Yeah, because we obviously put a lot of thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that I get. Right. I guess I wouldn't be supporting it if I didn't believe that it was what was the best for the members. Right.
Right.
All right. Tim, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I know we always try to do as much as we can and provide the greatest possible value for members. What can members say to colleagues to get them more interested in joining ORS or to get further involved than they might be if they are currently ORS members? I guess is there like an elevator speech that
about why the ORS?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
My pitch is always because we're the most fun. But that's not necessarily the best pitch. I do, and I say that a little bit in jest, but I would say that, the ORS is an organization of individuals who are very, I think, very welcoming, very, with a high desire for people to feel comfortable with the organization. I'm not saying we hit the mark all the time, but I think as an organization, it's you have a lot of people who are very, I think, thoughtful about how they engage with others. And I have to say, I've thought about this a fair amount, actually. I think there's a little bit of a part of orthopedic research, right, that is like we're kind of underappreciated in sort of a research community, and I think that because of that we have this sort of like bootstrap ethos of trying to work together, be more collegial, help each other along. I mean, I do think that exists in the organization a lot. I think it's a highly collaborative group. So being a part of it, right, you're in ORS, you become a part of that very highly collaborative organization of people who are advancing, I think what is truly one of the most important, healthcare issues in the country, if not the world, which is like, how do we enhance and enable mobility over the lifespan, right? So, it's not about a ruptured ACL or a fractured bone, right? It's really about how do we keep people mobile, throughout their lives, right? And so they can live enriched, full lives and not experience the comorbidities of sedentarism, right? So, I mean, I think that this is what we do together as a community, and I think people who want to be a part of it should be a part of it. we're different than a very highly basic science organization. We're highly translational. I think that holds a lot of sway with people, knowing that, I think the organization tries very hard to really move therapeutics in a forward direction. It's founded in science, but yet, it heads in a very translational direction quickly. I think the engagement with the clinicians, which, Rick Lieber brought up, is a really important component of the organization, right? We're not solely a group of scientists sort of working in isolation, but the clinicians have always been this really important component of what we do. I mean, I think that's another thing for me as well.
Great, thank you. Well, Kurt, I have to say that I had a couple questions here, but you actually hit them all on your progress through all of these other questions everybody had today. So this has been great. Do you have any inspirational words of success that you could share?
Inspirational words of success. Sure. I guess I would say, I think all of our successes are built upon our relationships with other people, whether it's our mentors or now at my stage, people who, are working in my lab hard every day. And I'm very thankful for what everybody has contributed to my career. I find it a pleasure and a real honor to be able to serve the ORS in this way over this next year. So those two things, recognizing the contributions of the people who work with me now and who guided me in the past, and then also all of our outstanding, ORS members.
Great, thank you very much. If anybody else has anything, we can field these questions now. Otherwise, we can wrap up slightly early. This has been great, and it's been very in comparison to earlier today, this has been great to have the interaction, because we had a smaller group. So this is very much appreciate all you guys being here.
Well, right, and I think thanks for saying that, Tim. I mean, when I made the decision to do this, I realized that it might be there was a possibility it might be me and you, Tim, or me and you and Sharon. And that was okay with me, right? If one member was here and we were able to engage with one member, that's actually what's most important to me. And yeah, we had, a few more people this morning. And I think that was a good conveyance of information, but it's been nice to be able to have a little bit more of a conversation. So.
Well, I love that you're doing it. I think it will only increase in through word of mouth. I think the group size will increase. So I appreciate these efforts.
Thanks, Audrey. I appreciate it. The plan is, and Tim and I talked about this today, we're going to get them set on the calendar for the next year, essentially. So we'll have them pre-planned. We can do better to get them out over social media and all that kind of stuff as well. So we, right, that we were, because of me, we were maybe a little underprepared, but I wanted to make sure, having made a commitment to doing this, I wanted to make sure I did it before the end of the month. So, hopefully we'll build it into more over time.
And just some feedback. Is there any way you could change the mechanism of doing this so that we can see the other attendees? Because that may be just more.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that's how it was set up for the original meeting here. So we will certainly take that into account. Right now we have it so the presenters have the video, and then I think for this the amount of people in the attending these, I think that would be very nice to have. I think we just had to have it set up like this in case there were going to be more, and then we couldn't have 50 people or whatever with video, but we will certainly look into that for the next round.
Great. It's just nice to see who else is out there.
Yes, for sure.
Thanks, Audrey. I didn't realize that was an issue. I didn't know that was a problem.
This is a webinar format, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Obviously, another consideration is like, trying to protect sort of this open open forum so we don't get any Zoom bombing as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's ways we can do that. So thank you for that feedback. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's almost 9 o'clock here for me.
6 o'clock here.
6 o'clock there for Russell and Jennifer.
8 o'clock here. Yep.
Yeah,
So I appreciate everybody coming and signing in. Tim, thank you so much. Tim did an amazing job setting this all up with Sharon. And so Tim and Sharon, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And all of you for showing up too. Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you very
Kurt.
much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Kurt.
Tim.
Thank
Sharon.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
rest of the day.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.